My name is Claire, and I've always been passionate about learning. When I was accepted into one of the most prestigious universities in the country, I was thrilled. Little did I know my academic journey would lead me into a nightmare I could never have imagined. It was the fall of 2017 when I first met Professor Alexander Gray. He was renowned for his expertise in ancient history and folklore, and his lectures were always packed. There was something enigmatic and unsettling about him. His piercing eyes, his deep, resonant voice, and the air of mystery that surrounded him. Despite my initial unease, I was eager to learn from him. I enrolled in his course on occult history, a subject that had always fascinated me. From the very first lecture, I was captivated by his knowledge and the strange, compelling stories he told. But as the semester progressed, I began to notice unsettling patterns. Students who questioned him too much or showed too much interest in certain topics seemed to disappear from class without explanation. One evening, while researching in the university library, I stumbled upon an old, dusty book hidden in a corner. The cover was worn and faded, but the title caught my eye: The Dark Arts, A History of Black Magic. Intrigued, I opened the book and found detailed descriptions of rituals and spells. My curiosity got the better of me and I began to read. As I delved deeper into the book, I discovered a chapter on a powerful and dangerous spell known as the Professor's Curse. The spell was said to grant immense knowledge and power to its caster, but at a terrible cost. The caster would become a servant of dark forces, bound to carry out their will. Chills ran down my spine as I read the description of the spell. It matched the behavior and aura of Professor Gray perfectly. I knew I had to confront him, but fear held me back. I decided to gather more evidence before taking any action. Over the next few weeks, I discreetly observed Professor Gray, noting his strange rituals and the whispered conversations he had with a select group of students. One night, I followed him to an old, abandoned building on the edge of campus. Through a crack in the door, I watched in horror as he performed a dark ritual, invoking ancient and malevolent spirits. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. But before I could move, Professor Gray's gaze locked onto me. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and a sinister smile spread across his face. "You've seen too much, Claire," he said, his voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. "You should have stayed away." Panic surged through me and I turned to run. The shadows seemed to come alive around me, closing in and cutting off my escape. I felt a cold, invisible hand wrap around my throat, choking the breath from my lungs. Desperate, I whispered a protection spell I had read in the book. To my surprise, the grip loosened and I managed to break free. I ran back to my dorm, my heart pounding in my chest. That night, I barely slept, haunted by visions of Professor Gray and the dark forces he commanded. The next day, I reported everything to the university authorities, but they dismissed my claims as the ravings of an overworked student. With no one to believe me, I decided to leave the university and start fresh somewhere else. But the memory of that night and the sinister presence of Professor Gray still haunts me. Whether it was a hallucination or a genuine encounter with the supernatural, I'll never know. But one thing is certain: the Professor's curse will stay with me forever.